Have you ever wondered what truly happens when you stop chasing? When you pull back not out of anger, not to manipulate, but simply because you've come to a clear realization she's no longer a priority in your life. Most men believe that if they stop caring, if they walk away, the woman will just turn cold, walk off unaffected, as if the relationship never meant anything. But reality tells a different story. When a woman senses you're drifting away, when she feels your energy starting to fade, something deep within her gets triggered. It's a primal reaction. Women are far more sensitive than men to social and emotional shifts. They can sense subtle changes in your attitude before you've even acknowledged them yourself. And once she realizes that your attention isn't what it used to be, it hits her where it hurts the most, at the very core of her being. Why? Because attention, for many, is an invisible form of currency. When you take it away, you're not just leaving a void, you're shaking the very foundation of how she perceives her own value. And in that moment, her reaction reveals everything: who she truly is, how she truly saw you, and most importantly, whether she ever really respected you at all. Why is it that when a man pulls back, when he finally stops investing his time, energy, and emotions into a woman, her reaction speaks volumes? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Because how someone reacts to a loss, especially to something they once took for granted, may be the most revealing test of their true character. And you've seen it happen, haven't you? You go quiet, you take a step back, and instantly, she's either panicking or she's completely unfazed. Some women frantically chase after your attention, test you, try to pull you back in. Others simply move on, as if you never mattered at all. Why such a stark difference? Why do some women fight to preserve that connection, while others discard it like it was nothing? The answer might sting, but it's also your liberation. Her reaction was never really about you. It was about what you represented. The hard truth is, people don't always love you. They love how you make them feel. They love your presence, the comfort, the validation, or maybe just the convenience you brought into their life. And when you take that away, you're not just removing yourself, you're taking away the benefits. That's when the truth comes to light. So what happens when she no longer receives what she had grown so used to? Let's uncover that in the next part of the story. In the last part, we saw clearly that when you withdraw your presence, her reaction doesn't reflect who you are, but what you represented to her. And that distinction changes everything. You see, that's the core of it. We often delude ourselves into believing that relationships exist in some sacred realm, that people connect based on pure love, respect, and genuine emotional bonds. But peel away the romance, and what you often find underneath is an exchange, not in the shallow sense of affection for money, but a deeply psychological transaction: attention, status, security. That's why when you take your energy back, when you go quiet and stop pouring yourself into her, some people don't respond with grace. They respond with anger, desperation, manipulation. Why? Because they never truly valued you. They valued what you provided. This is where many men fail. They see those desperate reactions, the crying, the emotional outbursts, and mistake them for love. They think, she must care. Look at how much she's reacting. But let me ask you something. Does a drug addict love the dealer or the high? When you pull away and a woman lashes out, cries, provokes you, plays mind games to see if she still has control, you need to see it for what it is. It's not proof of love. It's proof that she's losing something she assumed she would always have. A woman who values you for you doesn't react with manipulation or punishment. She might feel the pain of losing you, but she respects it. She reflects on it. And that's the difference between a woman worth your time and one who only ever used your presence as a crutch to lean on. But here's where it gets darker. If you don't understand this, you'll fall into another trap. You'll start to think that if a woman reacts too calmly, it means she never cared. And so, you'll find yourself chasing the wrong kind of reaction, the explosive, unstable outbursts that look like passion but are actually just dysfunction. You'll begin to confuse chaos with meaning, and then what happens? You go back. You return to her, unknowingly teaching her that yes, she can still press your buttons. Yes, she can still control the emotional tone. And the cycle begins again. You've just taught her that to keep you, all she needs to do is create enough drama, enough instability, and you'll come running back into the game. That's how weak men are made. That's how you become the kind of man who's ruled by emotion instead of anchored in self-respect. So what's the solution? It's simple, but not easy. You must learn to walk away. Not to play games. Not to provoke a reaction. But to demonstrate your self-worth. A man who walks away calmly with no rage, no need to prove anything, that is the man a woman actually remembers. That is the man who is respected. And here's the final, uncomfortable truth. Respect matters more than love. Because love can be fleeting, irrational, impulsive. But respect? Respect stays. So, how do you build that respect from the very beginning? Let's dive deeper in the next part. In the previous part, we talked about how love may fade, but respect is the foundation that makes someone stay. And once a woman no longer respects you, it's only a matter of time before walking away becomes effortless. A woman who once respected you when you pull back, she will feel the weight of your absence. She'll reflect. She'll ask herself what she may have lost. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing her to look inward. But on the other hand, if she never truly valued you, she'll walk away with chilling ease. No hesitation, no regret. And in that moment, the truth is laid bare. So next time you step away, observe not with judgment, but with clarity. Watch closely, because her reaction will reveal far more than any words ever could. And if that truth stings, good. Maybe it's exactly what you needed to hear. But let's be honest for a moment. Why do people stay in relationships that are slowly draining the life out of them? Why do men ignore the warning signs, the gut feelings, the obvious red flags, and continue to invest in someone who doesn't truly value them? You've seen it happen. Maybe you've even lived it. You start compromising. You feel yourself bending, breaking, giving more than you should. Until one day you wake up and realize you no longer recognize the person in the mirror. That's the tragedy of weak men. They allow themselves to be chipped away piece by piece until nothing remains. They ignore what's obvious. They rationalize. They say, "She didn't mean it that way," or "I just need to try harder," or "It's not really that bad." But let's face the truth. If you have to constantly convince yourself that it's not that bad, it's already bad enough. You need to understand something fundamental about human nature, especially your own. Your brain and its ancient survival wiring is always whispering, "Don't upset her, don't rock the boat, keep the peace." But where does that path lead you? It doesn't lead to happiness. It doesn't lead to strength. It doesn't lead to fulfillment. It leads to slow, silent decay. It's death by 1,000 tiny concessions. You let one thing slide, then another, and another. Before you know it, you've been domesticated. You've traded your integrity for the illusion of peace. And then you tell yourself, "Well, at least I'm not alone." But let me ask you this. What's worse, being alone or being with someone who makes you feel completely insignificant? Because those are the real choices. A man who betrays himself, who stays quiet when he should speak, who tolerates the intolerable, will never be respected. Not by the woman beside him, not by society, and certainly not by himself. And what happens when a woman realizes she no longer respects you? Let me tell you, she will test you. She will push. She will provoke. She will take more and more, waiting to see if you will finally draw the line. And when you don't, when you let it continue, she will lose all attraction to you. Not because she's cruel, not because she wants to, but because she has to. Because deep down, a woman cannot love a man she does not respect. So how do men usually respond when this happens? And what is the most dangerous mistake they make? Let's uncover that in the next part. In the last part, we uncovered a painful truth. A woman cannot love a man she doesn't respect. And when respect is gone, no amount of love, effort, or sacrifice can bring back what was never truly there to begin with. Here's where most men fall into the fatal mistake. They think, if I just show her how much I love her, if I keep proving myself, if I keep giving more, she'll change. But that's not how it works. Love is never given to a man out of pity. Respect is not won through desperation. True love is earned not through submission, but through strength, through your ability to draw a line and say, this ends here. I know what some of you might be thinking right now, but what if I lose her? What if she leaves? And the answer to that is simple and liberating. If standing up for yourself means losing her, then you never really had her to begin with. Because what you had wasn't love, it was a power dynamic. It was a game you were always set up to lose. That's the brutal truth most men don't want to accept. But here it is. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you let disrespect slide, if you avoid confrontation to keep the peace, if you lower your standards out of fear of loss, you're sending a message not just to others, but to yourself that you don't believe you deserve better. And people, including the one you're with, will believe that message. They'll believe it, and they'll treat you accordingly. So what's the way out? It begins with one powerful decision: the willingness to walk away. Not in anger, not as some reverse psychology tactic, but from a place of unshakable self-respect. You have to look yourself in the mirror and declare, I would rather stand alone in dignity than stay in a relationship where I am disrespected, diminished, and devalued. And when you truly believe that, when that truth is rooted in your core, everything changes. Because now you are no longer trapped. You are no longer a prisoner of your fear. You become the kind of man who is willing to lose everything except himself. And that is the man a woman will respect. That is the man she will choose, not out of need, not through guilt, not from manipulation, but because she wants to. And here's the final hard truth. If you're in a relationship where you constantly feel small, where you always feel like you have to prove your worth, then, my friend, you've already lost. The only real question now is this: will you continue living that loss? Or will you rise, reclaim your power, and walk away from what no longer serves your soul? Because in the end, the man who wins is not the one who clings. It's the man who refuses to be diminished. It's the man who values his self-worth more than he fears being alone. That man always walks away with his dignity intact. And that is the man who wins, not sometimes, but always. But this brings us to another haunting question. Why do so many men allow themselves to be manipulated, guilt-tripped, and emotionally twisted in their relationships? In the last part, we asked a tough question. Why do so many men allow themselves to be emotionally manipulated and controlled in relationships? The answer often comes down to fear, but there's something even more dangerous beneath the surface. Because the moment you begin to doubt your own reality, the moment you begin questioning what you know to be true, that's when you surrender your power. That's the moment you stop being a man in a relationship and start becoming a hostage in it. And let's be absolutely clear. Manipulation doesn't always look like chaos. It's not always screaming matches or dramatic accusations. Often, it's quiet. It's subtle. It's the gradual erosion of your confidence. It looks like affection being withdrawn whenever you don't comply. It looks like blame being shifted onto you every single time. It looks like being told that every problem, every emotion, every outburst is somehow your fault. She's upset, you didn't communicate well enough. She disrespected you, you weren't attentive enough. She crossed a boundary, you made her feel insecure. Do you see what's happening here? Reality is being rewritten in real time, and you're the one absorbing all the blame. And the worst part? It doesn't even feel like manipulation at first. It feels like compromise. It feels like you're being a good partner, someone who listens, someone who tries to understand. But there's a difference, a massive one, between understanding and surrendering. And the moment you find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, the moment you start excusing behavior you know is wrong, the moment you catch yourself explaining, justifying, defending for the 100th time to someone who's not even listening, that's the moment you're no longer free. That's the moment you're trapped. And here's the ugly truth about manipulators. They don't respect the people they control. They might enjoy the game. They might enjoy the power dynamic. But deep down, they despise weakness. And make no mistake, if you let yourself be controlled, if you let yourself be played, she might use you. She might even say she loves you. But she will never respect you. Because how could she? How can anyone respect someone who doesn't respect themselves? Now, I know some of you might be sitting there thinking, but I love her. I don't want to walk away. And I get it. Love is powerful. It's magnetic. It's consuming. But let me ask you this. What kind of love demands your silence? What kind of love forces you to surrender your dignity? What kind of love requires you to constantly doubt yourself just to survive? That's not love. That's dependency. That's emotional slavery. And if that's where you are, then walking away isn't just an option. It's the only way out. And yes, I know it's terrifying. The thought of leaving, of being alone, of starting over, it can feel like standing on the edge of a cliff. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, what's the real nightmare? Being alone for a season, or spending years, even decades in a relationship that slowly breaks you down, where your confidence is drained, where your identity erodes, where one day you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize yourself anymore? That's the true cost of tolerating manipulation. It doesn't just hurt you, it destroys you. But there's hope. Because the moment you stop tolerating it, the moment you finally reclaim your truth, everything begins to shift. And that's what we'll explore in the next part. In the last part, we exposed the harsh truth. If you allow yourself to be manipulated and disrespected, you don't just lose control over the relationship, you lose yourself. But the moment you decide to stand up for yourself, something powerful happens. When you stand your ground, when you say no more, you don't just walk away from the person who tried to control you. You walk away from the version of yourself who allowed it. And that is liberation. That is the exact moment you reclaim your power. That is when you transform into the kind of man who will never again let himself be diminished, broken, or disrespected. Because in the end, the man who refuses to be manipulated, the man who won't be broken down, is the man who commands respect. And that kind of man, he never begs for love. Because real love, true love, is only ever given to the man who knows he doesn't need it to survive. So why do so many men stay in relationships where they're not respected? Why do they tolerate dishonesty, emotional neglect, and subtle contempt? It's a painful question, and the answer is just as painful. Self-betrayal. It's the unwillingness to confront reality, the willingness to trade integrity for temporary comfort, the fear of being alone instead of the fear of being reduced. But let me tell you this. If you choose to stay where you are consistently disrespected, you are sending a message to the world and to yourself that you don't value who you are. And that is a catastrophic mistake. Respect is not something you beg for. It's not something you negotiate. It is something you command. And you don't command it through arrogance or force, but through unshakable self-respect, through your unwavering refusal to tolerate what you know is beneath you. Because the moment you start accepting disrespect, the moment you explain it away, excuse it, or stay silent, you've already lost. Why? Because someone who disrespects you once will do it again. And the more you let it happen, the more you train them to believe there are no consequences. And here's the deeper truth. Disrespect rarely starts with open cruelty. It starts small. It starts with sarcastic little jabs, with dismissive comments, with tiny moments that make you feel like a fool just for having standards. And if you let those slide, if you minimize them, they grow. They turn into disregard, then into contempt, and finally into betrayal. Because if someone doesn't respect you in the beginning, they sure as hell won't respect you later. You might think, maybe I can fix this. Maybe if I'm more patient, more understanding, she'll change. Wrong. Respect is never earned by bending further. It's not earned through submission, not by becoming more accommodating, not by proving your worth over and over again. The moment you make your dignity dependent on someone else's approval, you have already surrendered it. So what do? You draw boundaries. And let's be clear, a boundary is not a request. It's not a gentle suggestion. It's not something you ask for timidly, hoping for agreement. A boundary is a line, a hard line. And when it is crossed, there are consequences. You don't debate it. You don't explain it. You don't justify it. You enforce it. Because if you don't enforce it, you never had a boundary to begin with. All you had was a preference. And preferences do not command respect. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I set a boundary and lose her? Maybe you will. But let me ask you, if respecting yourself costs you a relationship, was it ever truly a relationship worth keeping? Because the alternative? It's far worse. It's the slow erosion of your self-worth. And that price, it's one you'll pay with your soul. Here's what you need to understand about respect. It's a mirror. When you demand it and enforce it, you attract people who respect themselves. People who value integrity. People who honor their own standards and yours. But when you allow disrespect, you invite more of it. You attract users. You attract manipulators. People who test your limits, then push past them. And it doesn't stop with romantic relationships. This ripples through your entire life. A man who tolerates disrespect from his partner will eventually tolerate it from friends, from coworkers, from society. And before long, his world becomes built on compromise, on swallowing his truth, on putting himself last, on becoming the man who never stands up because standing up feels too risky. But let me tell you this, the real risk is staying silent. The real risk is wasting years in a relationship where you are not valued. The real risk is waking up one day and realizing you spent your entire life pleasing someone who never truly saw your worth. And so, the choice is yours. You can keep making excuses. Keep hoping things will change. Keep letting yourself fade. Or you can draw the line right now. You can decide, once and for all, that you will no longer tolerate what diminishes you. Because in the end, the man who refuses to tolerate disrespect, the man who walks away when he must, is the man who commands respect. And that kind of man, he never has to beg for love. Because real love, true love, is only ever given to the man who knows. He doesn't need it to survive. But how do you become that kind of man, not just once, but every day? We'll explore that transformation in the final part.